Welcome back to another episode of Tech Ascent, the show where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Clingain. I'm also the founder of Ascension, the premier business development partner within tech. Today, we've got another great guest joining us, joined by Chris McLaughlin, the CRO of Vertesia. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Oliver. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat with us. Would you mind just kicking us off, telling us a little about yourself and what you guys do at Vertesia?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer, which ultimately means I'm responsible for go-to-market strategy, running sales and marketing for the organization. And we are just getting started. We are a Gen AI platform. And what that really means is we just kind of give you everything you need out of the box to quickly and easily build Gen AI apps, agents, and services for your organization. Our real focus is just get you to value as quickly as possible.
Very cool. And at a very simple level, would you mind breaking down what Gen AI actually is?
Oh, okay. Gen AI, generative AI, a lot of people are familiar with large language models. And in particular, we'll probably talk a bit about this today, right? Technologies like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. If you think about them very simply, they are technologies that are very good at reading documents, and in particular complex documents, analyzing them, and then generating output, right? So producing analysis, reports, content for your website. I think most people have used them to write emails and other communications. So that's the generative part of generative AI.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that breakdown. I'm sure there's some people in the audience listening as well that appreciate it. But in this space, obviously, there's a lot of noise around AI. With the Gen AI side of things, where do you think we are in terms of the adoption curve of it?
Oh, at the very beginning, and I'll make a distinction there, right? I think almost everyone has used Chat GPT, Copilot, what we would call kind of AI chatbots. And as we look across different organizations, they're either in a stage where they have employees that are using that technology more from kind of the consumer productivity standpoint, or they've kind of taken that next step and thought about like enterprise chat GPT, where they have a more structured rollout of the technology. Where we are not seeing as much progress, and where I think the real value in the space is, and the real opportunity for transformation, is around deployment of things like agents, agentic workflows, and agentic AI, right? So where we move kind of from that question and answer, query and response interaction that we typically have with ChatGPT into really automating work, really employing AI and AI agents in a way that is helping us to do work inside the organization rather than just working with us inside the organization.
And that's something I've been noticing a lot is there's, like you said, everybody's used ChatGPT at least once or twice. So it's a subtle difference, but that's using AI to work. Whereas with the agents and stuff, that's putting AI to work. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's using AI to work and then putting AI to work. So it's a subtle difference, but it does go a long way. And with what you guys are doing at Vertesia, how are you guys putting AI to work, so to say?
Yeah, so to kind of put a fine point on that, right? If you think about how you work with ChatGPT, Copilot, other AI chatbots today, right? You do work kind of in the same way you've always done work. You've just got a new tool on your desktop. Makes you more productive, helps you analyze documents, helps you write and produce output. But it's just another tool in your tool belt. And what we've really focused on in terms of putting AI to work is how can we look at those routine, repetitive tasks in your organization and automate those. And this is where I find people really have, there's a bit of a conceptual gap between what AI is capable of and how we do it today. And so it's really about getting people to understand that you can use agents like digital workers inside your organization, right? Think about reasonably complex knowledge worker type tasks and activities. They can reason, right? They can build a plan to do work. They can access and analyze information. They can use different tools and they can automatically produce output. So, really, what we're talking about there is giving them a specific task or a goal and then allowing them to go figure out how to do it, just like you would with a human employee.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, you also said we're very early, we're at the very start of the AI adoption curve. Right now, there's also a lot of noise in the space. How are you going about educating prospects about the main benefits of a Gen AI platform like yourself?
Yeah, it's really a challenge, right? You got the old expression, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. We're kind of in the agents everywhere phase. And there is a lot of noise. There is a lot of, as I said earlier, kind of conceptual misunderstanding about what the technology can and cannot do. And I would even say that we're kind of victims of the success of ChatGPT and Copilot and technologies like that, right? That's everybody's perception of what AI is today. So we spend a lot of time really thinking about thinking about different use cases, right? It's one of those things where showing people the technology in action has a huge impact. So rather than just talking about agents, agentic AI, having actual use cases, demos that are showing agents in action. Because for us, that's the aha moment for a lot of our customers is, oh my gosh, I've never thought about AI that way, or I'd never thought about it being able to do those type of things on its own. A lot of times with customers, we'd like to understand a specific use case, perhaps even use their own data so that we can show them that agentic activity in their own context. The other thing that we spend a lot of time educating customers around is just the type of things that you are not going to understand until you run into them on your path to production, right? How do I scale up to thousands or even millions of agents in action inside the organization? What do I need to do from a data preparation standpoint to get more accurate, more relevant results out of the models? Can't just hand a document to an LLM, and particularly like a long, complex document, and expect it to give you really good responses. So there are a lot of foundational things that you have to do in order to have real production success with the technology. We kind of like to say AI in and of itself isn't hard, but getting it right requires some real experience and expertise. And that's where we're really trying to help educate the market and also demonstrate a lot of the capabilities, the hurdles we've had to get over and now converted into capabilities inside of our platform so customers don't have to do it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. And in terms of that, laying that foundation, because like you said, AI is not hard, but you do need to make sure you're utilizing it correctly to get the most out of it. What areas do you see that, whether it be your clients or just other companies out there, can start kind of focusing on before they speak to a company like yourself?
So first and foremost is just figuring out where the technology can deliver the most value for the organization. And that's not always easy. We actually spend a lot of time up front with customers, really going through different use cases from the standpoint of AI is capable of a lot of things. It's not really a question of fit, but it is a question of impact and value to the organization, right? And just like any other technology transformation, you want to start with something that is high impact, that is really going to deliver value to the organization, create momentum and excitement within the four walls of the organization, and really help to give that technology a boost as you're kind of working your way through the adoption curve. And we kind of think about it this way, which is where organizations are really going to get long-term benefit and why we're a platform to begin with is when they begin to think AI first, right? And they begin to think ubiquitously about how the technology can impact the organization. So not just one core process or another core process, but really front office to back office. How can I AI enable different activities in my organization? Not just about cost savings, right? And we're not really even talking about taking employees out of the equation or reducing headcount. It's really about how can I be more effective in the way I interact with customers? How can I bring products to market more quickly? How can I reduce churn in my organization, increase customer satisfaction? So there are a lot of benefits and a lot of areas where we can impact the organization. So having focus there is really important. And then you've also got to start kind of working past some of the foundational pieces. So we talked earlier about data preparation, right? How do we lay a successful foundation for AI inside the organization? Make sure we're feeding the models the right information so that we're getting the right accurate responses back. Thinking about things like scalability, security in that environment, and even transparency and compliance. You know, a lot of people have kind of taken this path where, hey, we've started with chatbots. We've also started to think about enabling different point solutions, AI add-ons within some of our core business applications. And, you know, you kind of see a pattern where organizations are going to wake up in 12, 18 months and have a bunch of different architectures, a bunch of different AI technologies in production. And now they have kind of a transparency compliance nightmare as well as a maintenance nightmare to think about as they move forward. So I think just having a very thoughtful approach in terms of where they want to deploy the technology, how they want to deploy the technology, and thinking further down the road about what some of the outcomes will be will avoid a lot of the future snags and challenges they might have if instead of just going about it kind of in a haphazard fashion.
I like it. That's some really good information. And in terms of the use cases, you mentioned earlier that you used to educate prospects, get them to their aha moment. Is there any certain use cases that you consistently see across, whether it be your clients or customers you're speaking with?
So the answer is there are tons of them, right? And it's everything from, you know, we have customers today that are in like R&D functions, engineering, and they're thinking about things like product documentation and being able to automate the way they produce release notes. We have customers that are using us for general knowledge base use cases for customer service and support. We have customers that are doing grant reviews and taking very complex documents and comparing them against scoring rubrics in their environments. So the answer is yes, there are a ton of use cases, and we see high repetitive nature across things like financial services, insurance, whether it's claims, underwriting, even some of the back office billing processes. But what we really try to get customers to think about instead of trying to pick a specific use case or repetitive use case is think about any of your processes that are particularly document intensive, where we're typically employing knowledge workers, and where those knowledge workers spend a lot of their time accessing information, analyzing information, summarizing information, because these are the kind of things that LLMs are really, really good at. And where we can take a lot of low value kind of repetitive work out and enable humans to do the things that they're really good at, right? Once that information's been assembled and analyzed, now I can employ a human to review it, to make a decision, right? So we're not talking about taking humans out of the equation. We're talking about making them much more effective at their jobs and eliminating a lot of the tedious work that they typically do today.
And it comes back to that earlier point where AI is just a tool at this point anyways, but we'll revisit that in 15 years. But for now, it is just a tool. It is meant to kind of amplify the human, not replace the human. And I think in some aspects, that's getting blown out of proportion. There's just the sense of fear with anything new, especially anything that's grown as quickly as this has. So,
Absolutely. And every study that has come out has kind of borne out the fact that this really isn't about replacing humans. And what we typically find with customers too, which is really interesting, is one, we're allowing humans to be more customer facing, right? Spend more time on high value activities for the organization, which has a lot of very valuable downstream impacts for the organization. But two, in a lot of cases, organizations start to think about things that they haven't been able to do due to resource constraints and other things of that nature, and go focus on that as an opportunity for AI inside their organization. So they're solving problems they haven't been able to solve before, all with the same amount of human resource and cost in the organization. So it's not about doing the same thing with less resource, it's about doing more with the same resource.
That's a great way to put it. And in terms of Vertesia, obviously trying to do more with the same resource. Looking forward, Chris, being the CRO, what sort of goals do you have as we wrap up 2025 and head into 2026?
I think the big one for us is to really start getting over that adoption hurdle, right? And we're very focused right now, as you touched on earlier, on market education, really getting people to understand some of the common bottlenecks that we see, right? For example, a lot of organizations have spent a lot of time, energy, and resource kind of on what we call DIY, right? Building their own infrastructure. And we saw this in the early days of cloud. Very, very good analogy there in terms of when cloud first came about, people were all about kind of rolling their own. And what they quickly realized as technologies like Kubernetes became available is that there should be a standardized way of doing these things, and that companies can be much more efficient kind of employing the right third-party technologies in this area. So as I talked about earlier, it's really about getting people to understand where the value comes from the technology. It's not from building infrastructure. It's from getting actual apps, agents, services into production, and then helping them to understand some of the common barriers to getting those things into production and how we can address them. And even for organizations that are DIY, helping them to anticipate some of those challenges, right? When you have customers who are doing things at extreme high volumes, right? We have one customer, digital asset management customer, who's doing massive amounts of asset ingestion. And then you got to think about, hey, sometimes these services fail. Hey, sometimes they're not available. Hey, if you start throwing immense volumes of work at them, the model providers begin to throttle back your performance and the scale of the models themselves. So you got to think about things like load balance. You got to think about things like, how do I deal with very high scale work? And ideally, perhaps without having to pay for dedicated inference and things like that, which can be massively expensive. So these are the kind of challenges that we're seeing and overcoming and trying to help other customers really understand and anticipate before they run into it.
I like it. And with the way the AI space is trending at the moment, Vertesia is in a very good spot.
We think so. Absolutely. Yeah. We're very excited about the future. And mostly what we're excited about is really seeing customers begin to realize the real value, and I mean transformative value from this technology, right? It's not just about individual worker productivity, but really about their opportunity to really re-engineer and rethink the way they do certain core business processes.
It's going to be changing a lot of things for sure. If it hasn't already, it's coming. And Chris, we've talked a lot about the AI space in general and what you're doing over at Vertesia, but I got one last question for you before we wrap up. It's my favorite one to ask at the end of the show. If there was one thing you wish you learned a little earlier in your career, what would that one thing be?
So it may be a little bit cliche from a CRO perspective, but it's a simple two-word: don't wait. Right? When you get brought into an organization as a CRO, you have to recognize you have a mandate for change. Right? You're not there because things were working fantastically before you got there. And so one of the things in a very common conversation I have with other CROs is don't wait, right? If you need to address things from a performance standpoint, don't wait. If you need to make changes from a leadership standpoint, don't wait. The critical thing you have to recognize is that you need to make change in the organization to get to the results that you need to generate for the organization. And I promise you, at least across all the conversations I've ever had with other CROs, it's not the stuff that you did that you regret after you leave a role. It's the stuff that you didn't do or didn't do soon enough. So don't wait.
Wise words to live by, even outside being a CRO. If you've got your eye on something, don't wait.
Exactly.
Awesome. I love it, Chris. And that is pretty much all I've got for you today. So we can wrap up now. But I really appreciate you coming on the show, taking the time to share some insights, what you're seeing in the AI space. But I'll be sure to tag your LinkedIn and Vertesia's website down in the description. But is there anywhere else people can connect with you on?
Nope, those are the two primary ones and probably the best ones.
Perfect. I'll be sure to tag all that down in the description. And for everybody tuning in, thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for giving us your attention. And Chris, one last thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
Been a pleasure as well.